I have a lot of interests. Two of the main interests are writing and painting. I'm an amateur artist, so I do a lot of painting, and I also do a lot of writing. So these two things keep me going. It makes my life worthwhile, worth living. I loved reading because I've always been very, very fond of reading English literature especially. I got my first book when I was 5 years old. My father bought me fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales when I was 5 years old. And from that time, I started reading. After that, it was Enid Blyton. And then when I was studying in the convent, we had to read one book a week and write a book report. So this reading habit was nurtured from very young. And up to, now I will sit in a corner and I can read for 2 hours at a stretch. I decided to develop these two interests in 1998. 2 years before I retired, I must develop two interests that will take me right into my old age. And what better interest than writing? I inspire myself actually. Of course it comes from Allah. Yes. I believe that all our inspirations and our initiatives come from Him. But as Shakespeare says, the fate, dear Brutus, lies not in the stars. It is we who are the underlings, which means do not think that everything must come from God, from the stars, from the heavens. Human beings must make the effort. And only if you put in the effort will you see the results of your creation, of your work. All right? So we are God's creation, and we create writing, we create books, we create art. All right? Because we are inspired by God. I won't be so posh as to say that my academic studies were the most wonderful memories. Yeah. I do have very good memories of my English literature program. I have good memories of my favorite lecturers like Dr. Lloyd Fernando and, of course, Professor Koo Kay Kim was my lecturer when I was in first year. Professor Lee Kam Heng was my first tutor when I was in first year. So I do have very good memories of some of the lecturers, all right? But I think the most pleasant memories were with my course mates.
Yeah, sure.
And with my college buddies, I was in the third college in my first year. And then in my second and third year, I was in fourth college. So we had great fun, among the girls in that college. Before it was an all-girls college, no boys.
Back then?
Yes, yes, it was all girls. But we did have the boys coming during ragging time. And there used to be this thing called panty raid. The boys would come about 10 o'clock after dinner, and they would rush into our corridors, into our rooms, and they would steal our panties and hang them outside. So that was exciting. That was pretty exciting. That was what was exciting, we look forward. And then we also had socials, a lot of dances, weekend dances. Of course, you have the freshie, big ball, freshie ball. And then you have third college ball and fourth college ball. But we also had weekend dances at the Arts Concourse. It was open, and then we used to have dances, social. A lot of friends, we formed groups and so on, and we, socialized, in a very open way, in a very open, innocent kind of way. Nothing like today, hiding behind the bushes to smoke your, whatever vape or drugs or whatever. We didn't have those things. I mean, boys smoke, Some girls also smoked, but we didn't have major problems. We were very well behaved back then. In the 60s, I was there 65 to 68 to do my degree in English literature, and then I went back to do my diploma in education 1968-69. So I was a student at University of Malaya for 4 years, right? But I went back, to become a lecturer in 1976. I taught in secondary schools for 7 years, and then I decided I wanted to go back and teach in my alma mater. So I went back and I started teaching at Pusat Bahasa in 1976 until 2000. I retired in 2000. I think I adapted very well because, I was educated in the convent, for until Form 5. And then I was in King George V School for my Form 6, for my A-levels, and it was a co-ed school. So I was introduced to mixing, with the boys very early, when I was in Form 6. So, of course, when I left home, I felt homesick for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
For a while. But Seramban, my hometown is Seramban, is not so far from KL.
30 minutes.
So I could go down every 2 weeks or so to see my parents, whom I missed, right? So it wasn't so much of a problem for me adapting to university life, and I had a very mixed social group. We mixed very freely in those days, among the races, and that is one thing that is not happening these days at the University of Malaya. When I taught there from 1976, I saw the change happening, that, students of the same ethnic group were going around together, eating together, and not mixing so well. So that change happened, I think in the 70s, starting 70s, mid-70s, and after that, now, I think students don't mix very well. I think in university you can also say there is polarization. Students who do the same course usually go around together, move around together. So you have medical students going with medical students, and engineering students mixing with engineering students. And in some of these faculties, it's a mixed student population. But in some faculties like Academy Islam or Pengajian Melayu, of course, there is a majority of Malays. So you would mix only with your own course mates. All right? So that is one factor. Okay? The other factor is food. All right? Before, we used to eat with each other very openly. But nowadays, I think this whole halal haram issue has affected the thinking of especially the Malays. They will not sit with people who take haram food, right? So that is an issue, and this, of course, goes into the deeper issue of Islamic, or rather religious misunderstanding, religious intolerance. And I would like to be very positive about this, I don't think it is prejudice or bias, it's actually ignorance that results in people trying to avoid other religious groups and so on, because you don't know one another, you don't know one another's religion, so you feel worried, you feel scared that the other group might try to influence you. We had no such worries. We were very confident, We were very secure. Kalau orang Islam, orang Melayu Islam, we're very confident. We don't feel threatened. But nowadays, kalau orang Melayu Islam, dia ingat orang lain nak mengkafirkan dia. I don't know. I think it's to do with the gap, the gap between the rural areas and the urban areas. I think in the urban areas, people are still broad-minded. They mix freely. But if you come from rural areas, you grow up with this lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge. I won't say it's prejudice, It's not prejudice. Prejudice is when you know something and you purposely condemn it. That's prejudice. But if you don't know something and you're scared, that's not prejudice. That's just ignorance. So what must be done is for people to know, to learn more about one another's religions, culture, and that will open up a lot of goodwill, saling menghormati. It was natural. Nobody had a policy. There was no policy. Oh, you sit here, you sit there, you sleep. Oh, ada. Sorry. In third college, we changed roommates every term. There were 3 terms, kan? Dulu we didn't have semester, so we had 3 terms. So in my first year, I had a different roommate each term. My first roommate was Iban, Madeline and Taban. My second roommate was Malay, Sham from Alustar, and my third roommate was a Chinese. So I think that is still being practiced, in the residential colleges.
We change a roommate every year, but then our roommates are basically from the same religion and the same races. So that's pretty sad.
I hear there were certain colleges which tried to introduce different ethnic roommates, but there were complaints. Although I left, I was teaching in Fakulti Bahasa for 25 years, and I retired in 2000. So it's almost 20 years since I retired. But I was an ahli jawatan kuasa, a committee member of the Persatuan Bahasa Modern Malaysia, which was founded by Professor Emeritus Asma Haji Omar. She was the first pengarah Pusat Bahasa, and she was the first dean. She was the first woman vice chancellor, deputy vice chancellor. So she built up Fakulti Bahasa from a small Pusat Bahasa to what it is today. All right. And we teach languages, we teach linguistics. It's Fakulti Bahasa dan Linguistik. So we teach a lot of languages, Asian languages, European languages, Malaysian languages, Tamil, Mandarin, Arabic and Malay, and of course English. And so we have students from all over the university coming to Fakulti Bahasa to take up these courses. You see? So the Fakulti Bahasa was like a little, example of multiracial, international population from all over the campus, from outside. All right? So we were quite an international community. And that has remained to this day. Even our staff, Fakulti Bahasa and Linguistic has a very mixed staff. Lots of Chinese, lots of Indians, lots of ada Kadazan, ada Spanish lecturers, ada French lecturers. So the environment is so mixed and conducive to interracial and intercultural mixing. The difference between then and now is that young people are spoiled by the internet, and you get bits of information from here and there. So your concentration span is very short. You cannot sit for 2 hours and read because you get very restless. We used to sit in the library for 2 hours to copy notes because we didn't have a photocopying machine. We had, but we had to pay 10 cents a page. It was a lot of money. So that's the difference. Also, the education system doesn't encourage this kind of reading. you see, even like when you answer exam questions, it's multiple choice, short answers. We had to write essays for all our subjects. It was no objective, no multiple choice. All examination questions were subjective essay type. So we developed our logical thinking, critical thinking, which is lacking these days, because you know, very fast, yes, no, here and that, so you cannot link the ideas in your head. My late father, Dr. Muhammad Said, was actually a doctor, medical doctor by profession, and he worked as a doctor, government doctor, from 1932 up to 1952, I think. All right? But around the time of, the lead up to independence, he had befriended Tunku Abdul Rahman and Tun Abdul Razak when he was working in Pahang, as a government doctor for 11 years. So he met Tun Abdul Razak when Tun Abdul Razak was 11 years old. Yeah. And he was going to enter Malay College, Kuala Kangsar. My father was actually a student from Malay College, Kuala Kangsar. So Tun Abdul Razak's father, Datuk Hussein, brought the young Tun Razak to see my father for medical examination, all right? Because when you enter the MCKK, you have to pass your medical examination. So my father examined the young boy and so on, and asked Tun Razak, "What is your ambition? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And Tun Razak said, "I want to be an orator, a speaker." And actually, Tun Razak, when he became Deputy Prime Minister and so on, when he became a politician, he was a very good speaker, right? And he managed to win over the rural Malaysia with his style of speaking, very friendly, very down to earth. So that was how my father started his career as a medical doctor. But because of the friendship with Tun Razak and Tunku Abdul Rahman in London, they were students in London. My father did his postgraduate medical studies, and Tun Razak and Tunku Abdul Rahman were law students. All right, so they met. The Malaysians in London met, and they became friends. All right, so in the run-up to independence, my father was approached by Tun Razak to stand for elections, to offer himself as a candidate for elections. I think they had plans, for my father, because my father was a doctor, and at that time there were not many Malay doctors. There was Tun Dr. Ismail at that time, already in politics. But my father was a doctor, he was not a politician. But he agreed. So he resigned from the government in order to stand for elections. So he set up his own private clinic called Said Clinic in Seremban. Yeah. And he became a private practitioner, right? And then stood for elections, and then was picked as the first elected Menteri Besar of Negeri Sembilan in 1964. And he served Negeri Sembilan for 2 terms, 5 years, from 1964 to, from 1959 to 1969. It's all here. From 1959 to 1969. So he was the first Menteri Besar after Merdeka. We were so proud. We were so honored, but people in those days were very humble. Because your father is Menteri Besar does not mean very much.
Yes.
we led our own private life. We didn't go jet setting here or there, and we were not allowed to use the official car, the Menteri Besar's car, He had 2 cars, one for personal use, one for official use. We were not allowed to use the official car. So we knew our place. Bapa Menteri Besar, tapi anak-anak semua not spoiled.
Like normal
Normal. Although we lived in the official residence, 4 Lake Road, Seremban, I remember. I have beautiful memories of 4 Lake Road, Seremban. I stayed there for 10 years. I grew up there. So I have beautiful memories of 4 Lake Road, Seremban, which is now a museum, around the Lake Gardens. Beautiful. And so my father was a very busy politician, or rather more of an administrator than a politician. Of course, he went to all the ceramah and all that, but he was known as a very good administrator. No nonsense, punctual. He arrived for every meeting 5 minutes before time. Isn't that a wonderful habit? So all those who came late were scared. The Menteri Besar was already there, and the others would come in later. So he inherited a very English sense of etiquette and manners, because he admired the English. He read a lot. He admired the English, and he followed the etiquette and the manners. So, and he was known for being very principled, no nonsense, a person of principles and integrity, kept his word, unlike the politicians today. So I think during those times we had this kind of very, wonderful leaders, role models. You look up to them for the values that they uphold. Just as we look up to the teachers. The teachers those days, they not only gave us knowledge, but they imparted values to build your character. If you break a promise, that's terrible. You mustn't break your word. You must keep to your word. You must not be dishonest. So teachers taught those things in school. And at home, of course, our parents reinforced it, or rather the other way around. We were taught those values by our parents through our religion and so on. And the teachers in school reinforced the values. So together, parents and teachers build up a wonderful, generation of people.
Yes.
Very firm, very disciplined, very firm with the children. But he was very fair. He did not discriminate, between one child and the rest. There were 6 daughters and 1 son. Everybody received equal treatment, equal pocket money, equal time, and so on. Equal education. If one person got something, the other person would get it. And during Hari Raya, we got the same equal baju from the same cloth.
All the same
Yeah.
colored as well?
My mother would buy 1 bale of kain, and all of us would be wearing the same kain in different pattern. So they save money that way, right? So those were wonderful memories, memories that you cherish, precious memories. We led a very simple life, very few luxuries, but we were so happy. Kalau musim buah, that was the best time, because my father would bring home 1 guni of manggis. And anak ramai kan, ini ada saudara mara duduk sama. So dia beli 1 guni manggis, 2 guni durian, langsat berapa kati, not gantang, apa kati?
Nowadays we use kg, right?
Kg, dulu kati lah. Tapi bukan kati-kati ni, bungkus, guni, dia beli by the guni. Kalau langsat 1 guni. Guni is a sack, big sack. So puas sangat makan. And of course, balik kampung, panjat pokok, that kind of thing. So that was wonderful, wonderful. And my father was also very disciplined, self-disciplined, and also disciplined at home. In terms of time spent with the family, he was quite selfish, you know. He was quite selfish.
With the work or
with his time. He preferred to spend his time reading. He did not chat with us very much. He read and then he wrote. Every day he entered the day's happenings into his diary. All right? And he wrote this when he was 72. He started writing when he was 72. He finished it 2 years later, and it was published in 1982, I think. But this is a revised edition. I revised it and published it in 2011. My favorite lecturer is Dr. Lloyd Fernando. He was a Malaysian Indian, but he got his PhD from the University of Hull, I think, England. And when he came back, he was our lecturer for Asian literature, right? So we did Asian literature, Malaysian literature, Filipino literature, even Indian literature. And he was he spoke very well. I'm always impressed by the way people speak. And he spoke very well, and he was very well-mannered, gentle, soft-spoken, but deep. I like that kind of a man. And he used to smoke this pipe. So every time he came to class, lecture is different from tutorial. I was also in his tutorial group, and we looked forward, you know, because we all had a crush on Dr. Lloyd Fernando. Do you know what a crush is?
Yeah, like admiring him.
Admire, you know, and me especially. Oh, Dr. Fernando, Dr. Fernando. And I used to wait for him to fill his pipe with tobacco, right? Watch his fingers filling the pipe, and then he used to smoke and puff away and talk about Indian literature, Naipaul, and so on, and I would dream, you know, along with him, you know.
Yeah.
So he was one of my favorite lecturers. And of course, who else? I liked a lecturer from England, Pigott, a tall guy who did romantic poets. He was a tall guy and rather awkward, you know. He used to be like gangly, tall and clumsy a bit. But when he went into poetry, he used to like say and repeat it so vividly that you can see the thing before you. And his favorite poem was by William Blake called Tiger, Tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. And he used to bounce up and down the lecture hall, lecture theatre B, I think. Yeah. You know, he used to bounce around there and expounded his criticism of this poem. And then I was also in his tutorial group. So again, I admired him, you know, and I listened to him and so on and so on. So those two from the English department. Yes, I had a very special friend, very sad. We did English language. I had two special friends actually. One was Doreen Fernando. She was a Eurasian Catholic, you know, Roman Catholic. And one was Tan Sun Hock, Chinese. And we all did English together. And Doreen and I, on the days that I walked to lectures, Doreen and I would walk from 3rd college or 4th college to our lectures. But sometimes I would tumpang Tan Sun Hock because Tan Sun Hock had a motorbike. So I would hop on to Tan Sun Hock's motorbike and we would go up the hill, you know, the slope of the arts faculty. And I remember falling flat on the ground as we went up the slope.
Both of you guys?
Just me, because I was the pillion, I was at the back. She was holding the wheel, so she was quite steady I fell off the bike. So that was a very, very, memorable experience, and I cherish those two friends very much. Fortunately, I'm still very much in touch with Doreen. Doreen married a Malay, and she converted to Islam. So she is now Shahrin Kamaluddin. We still keep in touch. But unfortunately, I am not in touch with Tan Soon Hock because she chose to cut off the relationship when her son died. Her son died when he was 32. Her favorite child, the only boy. He was a doctor, very successful, young doctor in Melbourne. He died suddenly. So when he died, she cut off her relationship with all her friends except one, Datin Zainab. She's still in touch with Datin Zainab, but she refused to see any other friends. I think she didn't want to be reminded of, we will ask her, and she'll be reminded of the son, her favorite boy, So that is something I feel very sad about, that she chose to cut off the relationship when we were so close in college. We used to eat supper together, buy a bungkus of mee from PJ Old Town, beli satu bungkus mee, semua orang makan dengan chopstick. So we shared lovely moments. It's still in my memory. But she herself has not come forward to be friends again. I don't know why. I have authored an award, to the Faculty of Arts, 2 awards for convocation. In recognition of my alma mater, of the Faculty of Arts and the Faculty of Languages and Linguistics, my organization, Voices of Peace, Conscience and Reason, we're going to run this award for 10 years. So every convocation, there'll be 2 prizes for the best master's thesis. One in language studies, the other one is open to all the other departments of Faculty of Arts, so including media studies. And the award is Koo Kay Kim Memorial Award for communication and media studies, so you are eligible when you do your master's. For the Faculty Bahasa is going to be the Asma Haji Omar Award of Excellence for Language Studies. So Prof. Danny Wong, the Dean of Arts and Social Science, is looking into it now, and at next year's convocation, the awards will be given over a period of 5 years and then another 5 years. So for 10 years, Association of Voices of Peace, Conscience and Reason, or PCOR as we call it, will be giving this special award, giving back to the alma mater. Yeah? And what I also hope is that I'm very much into harmony and mutual respect. This is part of my citizen movement work, So we want to promote harmony, mesra, saling hormati. We started with schools and we're going to universities. We want to promote this as a national movement, and then communities, residents associations, youth. So nak membangkitkan, nilai harmoni mesra saling hormati antara individu, antara kumpulan, antara kaum, supaya semoga seluruh negara terikat dengan harmoni mesra saling hormati. This is a new look at perpaduan lah. Perpaduan, I feel, is too abstract an ideal. It's an ideal unity. Most of the time you can't achieve unity, but you can promote Harmony Mesra. It's a new branding, a new slogan. Harmony Mesra, saling hormati. Dah ada lagu pun yang saya reka, saya cipta.
So the song will be...
Lovely song.
How?
I can play it to you. We've already played it with the schools.
Maybe.
I'll send to Dr. Azlan. We've already played it in schools. We're trying to promote it at different levels of the community. We played it at UCSI when they had a function there. So it's really upbeat, upbeat number. Harmony Mesra, saling hormati. I would like to take this opportunity to wish the Faculty of Arts and Social Science, my alma mater, the very best in your endeavors, and to make sure that there is integrity in all of your activities and your academic development, and to make sure that we produce amazing research, amazing students with the highest caliber to make the nation proud, so that we'll have this wonderful khazanah of scholarly input from the Faculty of Arts and Social Science. All the very best indeed.